Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Patriot Games, starring Harrison Ford, Aaron Archer, James Fox, Samuel L. Motherfucking Jackson, Polly Walker, Patrick Bergen, Sean Bean, Thora Birch, J.E. Freeman, and James Earl Jones, and directed by Philip Noyce. Now, before I get into this is my second or third viewing of this movie, but I remember it being kind of bad, but is it the same as it is then? Let's get into it. We see the Ryan household as Jack Ryan, this time played by Harrison Ford, calls the house to remind his wife Kathy, played by Ann Archer, about Sally's goldfish, and his daughter Sally is played by a young Thora Birch, as Jack and Kathy celebrate an anniversary, and the next day he gives a speech at some school academy in London, while Kathy and Sally tour around London, and the next thing you know, Sean Miller, played by Sean Bean, puts a bomb on Lord Holmes's car while Jack, Kathy, and Sally witness an attack, and Jack steps in to kill Sean's little brother, Patrick. As Jack is already shot, and Sean and his dead brother, Patrick, get held into custody, and while Kathy treats him and the ambulance comes and picks him up, and this movie is all over the place as it feels familiar, like another movie copied this plot. In Virginia, Jack is in the hospital with Kathy while Sean is in jail and is interrogated and beaten by the authorities in London. And honestly, I don't like this plot because it's all over the goddamn place. Jack gets briefed about Sean and is thanked for capturing Sean and becomes a knight, or another way of putting it, Sir Jack. Jack goes to the courthouse and puts Sean in prison, and Jack gets threatened by Sean, and they come back home from London. And I said earlier that another movie copied this plot, and that movie is called Death Sentence, which is a Death Wish ripoff with Kevin Bacon, and this plot is copied by Death Wish. Kathy is pregnant with a baby boy, and they want to name the boy. Meanwhile, Sean stares in a prison cell at Jack in the newspaper, and a lot of this movie is a Death Wish ripoff with when Sean gets broken out of prison. And I do like Harrison Ford as Jack Ryan, but unfortunately, the movie just goes nowhere for me, and this breakout did nothing for me either. And it's kind of a shame for Mr. Ford. Jack gets a visit from Admiral Greer, returned by James Earl Jones, to tell Jack the bad news at his house with another guy and asks Jack to come back to work for the CIA. And Jack declines at first while Sean is on the way to America as he wants to kill Jack for killing Patrick, which is a shameful plot for a man in the CIA kind of movie. In Annapolis, Maryland, Jack teaches a class, and Robbie, played by Samuel motherfucking Jackson, gives a shoot me as a joke and a medal. And despite how little he does in this movie, Sam Jackson is a great presence to watch on screen, but he's barely a character in this movie. Sean goes to Sally's school to find Kathy picking up Sally, and follows Kathy's car and follows her while someone is stalking Jack, and another car, and Jack beats up the stalker as the guards shoot him dead, as Jack realizes Sean is after Kathy, and this is a hostage movie cliche, where the bad guy follows the wife and the kid to infuriate the protagonist, while Jack calls Kathy to get off the highway and the car gets shot, and Sean thinks they're dead, but little did he know they get hospitalized while Jack meets them at the hospital, as Kathy is fine and alive, but Sally is so far under a coma, as she's pretty much in bad shape. As Jack sees on the TV, Patty O'Neil, played by Richard Harris from Gladiator and the Harry Potter first couple of movies, to give his regards to Jack as he's pissed at him, and we learn Sally is still alive and well. And that is a convenient moment for the film. And Admiral Greer hires Jack back in as Jack wants back in and starts getting back to work as Jack is involved in the crime Sean put him through in the first place. And the movie's problem it pulls revenge movies off poorly. And Sean Bean is not a very good fucking villain in here as he was in other movies like GoldenEye or the Lord of the Rings, or so many movies where he's the villain. Jack witnesses a female at the CIA with red hair while in the bathroom, as he thinks she's the one in cahoots with Sean and wants to find her. Meanwhile, Sean learns Kathy and Sally are alive as he wants them, and by he, I'm talking about Sean, wants them dead. Jack wants to set up security all over his house. As they arrive home, Jack gets a call from Sean with threatening messages to keep his family much closer. And what if they caught Sean on the trace, which is ridiculous? Jack goes to Patty and asks where Sean is and doesn't tell him because he doesn't want to betray some fellow countrymen of Ireland. Yeah, some patriotism as it makes sense, but it's infuriating to death. Jack searches for Sean on the computer and asks Admiral Greer to blow up the camp in North Africa, and without knowing who it is, it doesn't make sense to me. Jack in the hospital sees Sally waking up and reads her something. Meanwhile, Patty gives Jack a gift, which turns out to be a doll for Sally, as well as an information about the red-haired woman. And Marty, who was the other guy in the house earlier in the movie with Admiral Greer, says he found her in the building as Dennis, aka the owner of a bookstore, escapes the bookstore as some government people thinks he's up to something, as he escapes the subway and tries to contact and reaches the government as they call Jack and take a meeting at his house. And I don't really know any of other characters except for Jack, Kathy, and Sally, as the other characters don't really matter, not even Sam Jackson and James Earl Jones. And it's a shame because I really like those two actors as well, as one is a badass and one has the best voice in the whole damn world. Sean, guess which one is which? Sean shoots Dennis because he can't get a hold of a gun, which doesn't make any damn sense either, in my opinion. The CIA tries to find Sean but are unsuccessful, which is typical as I'm an hour and a half into this almost 2-hour film, as Jackie and Kathy bring Sally home and they have dinner with some people from the government, as well as Robbie, and some servicemen are outside in the cold, and one of the government guys shoots another dead while Jack is on the phone with Marty, and the power gets blown out as somebody tripped the power, and the servicemen outside are dead, and knocks out the phone, as well as Jack, and Jack knows it was one of the government people, as he tells there's 5 or 6 people with Sean coming to the house as they break in, and Kathy and Sally go to a hiding spot as Kathy grabs the shotgun while Sean and his goons look for the Ryan family, as one is knocked down by the shotgun and Sally hides in the attic while Robbie waits for the bad guys to shoot him while his wife is right behind him. And Sean hears noises as Jack, Kathy, and Sally escape on the roof and gets Robbie to open the basement, as the government guy gets knocked out for calling Sean out. They turn on the lights as Robbie shoots 2 of the bad guys, and they all escape from the basement and hide in the woods and turn on some boats, and they wire down as Sean goes after one boat while a storm is occurring, which is super fucking dangerous, as this movie makes a lot of bad choices. For example, Sean shoots his own bad guys to get to Jack, which is a pretty bad choice, as he shoots Jack's boat and gets it on fire, as Sean gets on Jack's boat and fights with Jack and almost strangles him until Jack eventually hits and puts Sean in an area where it could stab him to death, as Jack gets off the boat and leaves Sean on the boat and blow up, and Jack and his family are safe, and they find out about the baby and leaves us in suspense, which is a terrible ending, as The climax didn't excite me, nor was I engaged with this entire movie. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 4.0 out of 10. The revenge plot is getting cliche as it's been done so many times since Death Wish, as this is an unoriginal and an unconvincing kind of way story to tell. The movie didn't engage me nor excite me as I don't care for any of the characters, not even Harrison Ford, Sam Jackson, and James Earl Jones, which is a real shame because I like these actors. The ending was terrible as we don't know anything about the baby, and maybe we have to wait for the next movie. I'm not sure, and what gender it is until the next movie. And I thought, don't keep me in the dark about the baby as it is alive or dead. As is it alive or dead, or is it a boy or a girl? But yeah, it was a terrible movie. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Clear and Present Danger. And until next time, I don't dance.